New Jersey's governor is taking steps to improve the state's air quality. We'll take a look at the plan and the impact it's expected to have on the future of new car sales in the state. Plus, one automaker is exploring some new tech that could revolutionize the way EV owners charge their cars. And sustainable aviation. Is it possible? We'll take a look at the latest effort to promote the production of biofuels for airplanes in the U.S. Hello and welcome to EarthX News, where we focus on sustainability and the environment. I'm Christina Thompson. Let's get into some of the biggest headlines facing our planet. New Jersey is going electric. Under the Advanced Clean Cars 2 rule, the state plans to make 51% of all new car sales electric by 2027 and flat out ban all new gas car sales by 2035. Policy leaders say this will help the state clean up its act when it comes to air quality and limit traditional combustion engine vehicles. Climate activists, though, say that transportation accounts for more than 1/3 of New Jersey's air pollution. And if you've ever driven through New Jersey, you know just how congested the roads can get, especially being a connecting state between New York City and Philadelphia. This new regulation will put 90,000 new EVs on the road by 2030. Now, there are concerns from critics who say this push isn't sustainable under current conditions, pointing specifically to NJ's electric grid, which is said to be struggling to meet demand already. The lack of charging stations and infrastructure is also a point of contention. New Jersey now joins New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Washington, Virginia, Vermont, Oregon, and Massachusetts in its pledge to adopt the Advanced Clean Cars 2 rule. Anyone who drives or wants to drive an EV would want to know, what do you do when you're driving on long road trips? Do you have to wait hours for a charge? Well, Stellantis, the company that owns Dodge, Chrysler, and Fiat, thinks they have the answer to these questions. When it comes to keeping EVs charged, Stellantis thinks that swapping, not charging, might be the key. The company is building battery swapping stations to provide a fully charged car in just 5 minutes. The first sites are being built and tested on a fleet of Fiat 500 EVs in Madrid, Spain. Essentially, robots will remove the drained battery and drop in a fully charged replacement. Supporters say this would ease up some of the pressure on the grid, as pack charges can be done in the middle of the night during off-peak hours, as opposed to drivers plugging in when they're just trying to get home from work. But don't get too excited yet. Leading EV automaker Tesla, they actually tried and abandoned this concept back in 2015 because manufacturers don't use the same style of batteries. The dream of quick swapping could be years away from becoming a reality. And powder power. New powder battery technology could soon give EVs a power range of 500 miles, charge in 10 minutes, and make U.S. automakers less dependent on foreign suppliers like China for materials. Scylla, a company based in California, is supplying Panasonic with U.S.-made silicon powder for EV batteries. This replaces the graphite in traditional lithium batteries. Silicone can store up to 10 times more energy than graphite. The material is also lighter and takes up less space. Several companies like Tesla and Mercedes-Benz are ramping up production of the new type of battery. This adds yet another potential solution to those pesky EV range and charging time challenges. Natural gas, it may be on the way out in Massachusetts. The state's Department of Public Utilities recently made big moves to distance itself from gas for heating, instead pushing for the electric alternative. Clean energy advocates see it as a step in the right direction, while gas utilities see it as a major defeat. Critics are concerned heating prices will likely rise because of this, and both advocates and critics acknowledge the fact that low-income households might have trouble heating their homes in the winter months just because of those added expense burdens. Massachusetts might be the first to make this sort of phase out, but they definitely won't be the last. At least 11 other states, including California, New Jersey, and New York, as well as Washington, D.C., they have pending cases that are exploring the future of natural gas. California regulators vote to keep operations open at the Diablo Canyon nuclear plant through 2030. That's despite environmental groups calling for its shutdown. The Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant is the state's last functioning nuclear facility. It's located between LA and the Bay Area, and it supplies 9% of California's power. It was supposed to be shut down in 2025, but that was now extended 5 more years. Even though the projected costs of keeping the plant running will top $6 billion, Governor Gavin Newsom, who once was a leading voice to close the plant, said last year that Diablo Canyon's power is needed to ward off potential blackouts as California transitions to solar and other renewable energy sources. Is your next vacation at risk? Some environmentalists think limiting travel is a good way to combat climate change, and some activists are proposing carbon passports to enforce it. Intrepid Travel, which is an Australian-based travel company, predicted this could become mainstream as early as 2040. Basically, each person would get a passport that would, in essence, require them to ration their carbon in line with the global carbon budget, which is 750 billion tons until 2050. Per person, that rounds out to 2.3 tons each year, which is equivalent to a round trip from Brazil to Saudi Arabia. The report says that virtual vacations will start to become more mainstream. Critics say this will hurt the economy and restrict personal freedom. Instead, they're encouraging the aviation industry to decarbonize through other means. President Biden and the Treasury Department just announced new tax credits for sustainable aviation fuel. The proposal calls for giving subsidies to support the development of so-called sustainable aviation fuels to power jet engines from agricultural products. It's meant to spur production of jet fuels that create no more than half the emissions of the petroleum-based product. These types of fuels include biofuels engineered out of soybeans, diesels made with animal fat, and conventional types of ethanol. Some environmental groups are worried the guidelines will allow fuels made from corn, sugar, and feedstock that they say is still too harmful for the environment, since it would require even more land, more water, and more sacrifice to farmland for fuel. We don't know yet for sure what guidelines will be solidified until spring of 2024, so there's a chance feedstock-based fuels won't even make the cut. As of right now, the administration is considering modifying the model to account for the environmental impact of the production of these fuels, but the corn growers are going to push for this to remain an option. The Agriculture Secretary said there is a need for 36 million gallons of the fuel, which is more than twice the amount of corn-based ethanol the U.S. currently produces annually. This new industry will support 400,000 jobs. Meantime, some experts are questioning the government's plan. Tim Searchinger, a senior research scholar at Princeton University, suggests the government's proposal could create more deforestation around the world as land is cleared to backfill food production displaced in the United States. Here to discuss the pros and cons of biofuels and whether it's a viable solution in the aviation industry, welcome in retired Air Force Brigadier General Blaine Holt. General Holt, thanks for coming on.
Great to be with you and a great topic to discuss.
You know, it really is. I think that a lot of people, though, wonder what exactly does a biofuel mean? And is it really an alternative for cleaner fuels for our airplanes and jet engines?
Gosh, you know, it just sounds so good, doesn't it? We'll grow something out of the ground and it'll get into a jet engine and it'll fly us to our favorite destination. It's got a lot of second and third order effects with that, though, and there's a lot of sacrifices that people would have to make to live in that world. But none of these climate arguments really mesh up and sync up well with aviation, because on the one side, you've got this war from the climatologists on nitrates and fertilizer. Well, how are you going to grow that corn? And even if you went to wild grasses and other types of grape seeds, you're still attacking the food supply. It's an opportunity cost. What I would like to see happen, hydrogen. Clean hydrogen that has zero emission, not less emissions, zero emission, and can be used in the existing infrastructure right now. So there's other options that are not being considered. I'm a little worried Americans are being shown that if you want to keep flying, you better grow more corn. That's not really the entire story. There's actually much more promising technology like clean blue hydrogen out there on the horizon. Hydrogen is 3 times more energy dense, and actually the exhaust port puts water into the clouds, which I think is needed as well. So it's where do you shift those resources when the government gets involved? They're the 800-pound gorilla. They always move things in a particular direction.
One of the criticisms also of biofuel is that it can create deforestation. I know you mentioned it before, right? That if you're growing this corn for fuel, then that's taking away from corn that we might grow for food. Is this a reasonable fear to have?
It's an absolute reasonable fear to have. Again, you get different climate agendas and they just kind of smash into each other at a place called aviation. Deforestation is something we should all be concerned about. But if all you're going to be able to do with knocking out a big, massive forest is to keep a jet up for another hour or two. Is that really worth it? And that's why you watch these monies fly around DC.
Speaking of all the money flowing around DC, these subsidies, right? President Biden wants to give subsidies to help cover the farmers' expenses for growing these plants if they were to do so for biofuels. But if you look at what's proposed in the plan right now, it's only about $1.50 to $1.75 per gallon. Is this really worth it? Is this going to make up for all the money that these farmers might lose, losing out on this land that could be sold for food or other profit?
Yeah, no, we shouldn't. Again, it's puts and takes. You're absolutely right. The economic benefit is not enough. And what I really worry about, now I'll put my military officer cap back on, food security is national security. And we have a very impinged food security environment globally right now. So now is not the time to say, instead of feeding bellies and having cheaper products at the grocery store, we're going to set aside all this agriculture to keep a jet flying for an hour or two more. That's nonsense. That's insane, especially when you've got another technology that you could use that actually can be used in cars, trains, boats, planes, everything that we need. And Honda and Toyota have already said, yeah, that's where we're going. We're going to have a hydrogen future. And at Zerient Aviation or Aerospace, that's what we're going to do too.
Wow. General Wayne Holt, thank you so much for coming on. I think you've shared a lot of really cool information with us.
Always great to be with you.
Coming up, we'll take a look at the fashion industry and its impact on the environment. That story is just ahead. Stay tuned. When you think of the couture fashion industry, the word sustainable likely does not come to mind. While some of Paris's most talented designing hands, they're trying to change this, one sustainable couture piece at a time. In 2018, Philippe Goulet, a well-known name having worked for Chloe and Donna Karan, as well as was the former design assistant to Karl Lagerfeld and Paul Galatier, set out to prove that fashion can be both couture and sustainable. He started Renaissance, a French nonprofit that produces upcycled pieces in couture styles and gives job training to low-income people and immigrants. Since, the company has rescued thousands of old clothes and pieces of fabric from landfills. They've sold dresses for upwards of $7,000 at Paris auction houses, and they've proudly displayed one-off pieces during Couture Week. They've also had several features in the hit Netflix TV show Emily in Paris. Nearly every piece they make is impeccably handcrafted and rooted in French design staples, and it's sustainable. So, I'll ask again, is couture fashion sustainable? Joining us now is the author of Fashionopolis, The Price of Fast Fashion and the Future of Clothes, Dana Thomas. Dana, thank you so much for coming in. Fast fashion, it might be a new issue for a lot of people. What exactly is it, and why should everyone care about it?
Well, fast fashion is the brands that you think about in malls and in busy streets like Zara, H&M, and Gap, and these companies that put out lots and lots of fashion really fast, that's super cheap, that you go in the store all the time, you come out with a bag full of clothes, and the problem is that it's actually too cheap, meaning that the people who make it aren't paid a living wage, that there's a lot of plastic involved that isn't biodegradable. And 2/3 of the clothes that we wear today contain polyester, which is a fossil fuel-based plastic-like material, and it never biodegrades. And it's a cheap, cheap fabric that you find in fast fashion. Same with nylon. We now buy 5 times more clothes per person than we did in 1980 when I was a teenager out shopping. And we're producing 100 billion garments or items a year in the fashion industry, but only selling 80 billion, which is a mind-boggling figure already, right? Yeah. And that means that 20 billion are sent off to be destroyed or dumped into landfill before they ever even hit the retail floor. It's a business that's just pushing consumption and overproducing so much. If we stopped producing clothes today, I learned, if we didn't make any more, we'd have enough new clothes out there to wear until 2050. And so these clothes are pushed on us, and we're kind of addicted now to shopping. And we can afford it because it's so inexpensive, but there's far too much production. There's a lot of waste, and the leftovers wind up in places like, the dunes of clothes in the beautiful deserts of South America, and they're washing up along the beaches of Africa and even Europe now.
What can our viewers take away? What's the solution? What can we do every day in our normal lives to start making a difference?
Well, there's lots of little things and big things. First of all, shop your closet. You don't need a new outfit every time you have a hot date on Friday night. You've got some great things already in your closet, right? And then give your clothes a longer life. Wash on the cold cycle, because if you think about it, every time you wash on the hot cycle, you're cooking, you're boiling your clothes. And so they last less time, they fade. And also they release microfibers, all that plastic and polyester and nylon and neoprene, and it releases microfibers into the water, and that happens more in long washes in hot water than short washes in cold. But also, you don't need to wash your blue jeans every time you wear them. That kills blue jeans. They don't like to be washed. When they were invented by miners, or for miners in the gold rush in the 19th century, they never washed their blue jeans, okay? So you don't have to wash them every time you wear them. And then just have a think. I know a Vogue editor who has a rule that if you fall in love with something you think, at a store or online, click and save it, and then go back a week later. And if you're still in love with it, then buy it. But don't go for the impulse, as they say in Britain, the thrill at the till. Don't go for that impulse shopping. Step back, take a long breath, and say, will I keep this in my wardrobe? Will I cherish it? Because we should be cherishing our clothes as we did a long time ago. And we've been a bit too cavalier with them and just saying, well, it's so cheap, I'll toss it and get something new.
A lot of great tips. I've started doing that. If I want to buy something, I'll wait a week or a few days and make sure that I really want it. And mostly I don't end up buying it. And I've also switched to start renting my closet. There's a ton of really great organizations out there that offer that. Yeah. Secondhand is also amazing so that clothes don't end up in landfills. But Dana Thomas, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all these great tips and educating our viewers. This was fantastic.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Coming up, the critically endangered angel shark gets a health check. Stay tuned. That story is just ahead.
We don't know what they do down there. We don't know why they go down there and when they go down there. We just know that they would go there. So shedding light on this big dark gap would help us greatly understand their behaviors, why they are going to certain areas, how they're using the habitats, and possibly also which areas we need to protect better.
Scientists and shark conservationists are teaming up in an effort to protect one of the world's most endangered species, the angel shark. Alex Salvi has more.
While sharks have a reputation for being some of the most vicious inhabitants of the ocean, they have a special place in the heart of Spain. It's on full display this Christmas season at Madrid's aquarium, where divers set up a nativity scene at the bottom of the popular shark tank. Dressed as three kings themselves, divers carry gifts to a rather startled-looking version of baby Jesus, laying next to Mary and Joseph. The scene on the ocean floor of the Canary Islands is slightly different, but divers still attempt to bring a gift of sorts: conservation. This is where the angel shark is in danger of extinction, awarded Spanish governmental protection status, but still facing dwindling numbers. Warmer temperatures and habitat destruction makes the shark critically endangered, with fears it could be lost forever in some places.
So we found a really high suitability habitat surrounding the dive that we did. A lot of potential prey around the places. Even some of the species that we know that are in the same habitat as angel sharks, like some rays, were in the area. So we know that the angel shark have to be there.
Scientists from the Ocean Census Alliance are joining forces with conservationists from the Angel Shark Project to learn more about the species near the volcanic Atlantic archipelago. The angel shark can grow up to 8 feet long and are notoriously elusive, burrowing in the sand before springing out to hunt.
Exploring the deeper areas, it's been our blind spot, and it's been critical for us because we weren't able to go down there ourselves, but we know that it's a habitat used by angel sharks. So we don't know, we suspect that they go down to 200 meters, but possibly they would go down further.
Marine biologists take the nearly 600-foot plunge in a submersible to better understand the shark's environment, deeper than they've ever traveled before. Volunteers take part in late-night operations to learn more about the sharks and their habitats, tagging the sharks and monitoring their behavior.
I think we have a lot of decisions to make, so we have to be here in the first line to make the right decisions.
They check the shark's health and compare it to other data to determine if decreasing numbers are due to predators, interactions with tourists, or other factors. The collective group hopes that by combining resources and learning more about the underwater species, they can make life-saving adjustments to protect the sharks and their environments and ensure this Jurassic species doesn't go anywhere. For EarthX, I'm Alex Salvi.
Alex Salvi, thank you. Now, before we leave you, a fascinating look at nature in action. Some dramatic images of a massive volcanic eruption in southwest Iceland. Fountains of fiery lava spewed out of the giant crack in the earth, following weeks of increased seismic activity. That's according to the Icelandic Meteorological Office. The eruption happened just north of a small fishing town, about an hour outside of the capital, just before Christmas. While the eruption has created a dazzling display, officials warned people against getting too close, as the lava flow can be very unpredictable. And animals at Bangkok Sea Life Aquarium got a visit from Old St. Nick to celebrate Christmas. A diver dressed as Santa Claus, carrying a box full of food, brought a little Yuletime cheer to shoals of curious fish, feeding them lots of holiday treats. That's it for this edition of EarthX News. Please join us again next week. I'm Christina Thompson.